Well, it looks like we're live everywhere. Just gonna move this microphone. We're live, but it's cold out. But I think that's okay. Welcome back to the Toronto Beer Podcast with me, your host and buddy, if I'm honest, Chris Schreier. Sorry for the delay, guys. I know I normally do this on a Monday night, but as warned, Monday night I was at Great Wolf Lodge with friend of the pod and genuinely great dude all around, Josh Lake. But what happened was, if I'm honest, I'd spent most of the day drinking gin and tonics by the pool. I was feeling pretty lazy. I was also potentially, let's just say everything was feeling pretty good at that point. And with that and the fact that the upload speed on the Wi-Fi at Great Wolf Lodge was like dial-up level of upload, it just wasn't going to be on. So I kicked it down the road, and now here I am on a Thursday night at 9 p.m. recording a podcast because I wouldn't want to miss a week because I do genuinely doing this. Anywho, let's dive right in. It is currently 9:30 p.m. on February the 27th. It is a leap year, so there are 2 more days in February. But in the next 2 days, I will not be recording any further eps, which means that this is the last of Flagship February on the Toronto Beer Podcast. And I got to tell you guys, I very intentionally saved a good one for this. Now, you will recall last week we had some delicious Ransack the Universe, lovely beer from our friends at Collective Arts. And the week before that, I had the controversial opinion that Steam Whistle Pilsner was in fact the flagship beer of the Ontario craft brewing scene. Controversial, guys. Believe me, I heard. I stand by that. I mean, I think I made a very valid point, and if you disagree with me, you can suck an egg, to use a phrase I like to use around my kids that they find quite funny. What does that even mean, suck an egg? Why would you ask somebody to do that? Anyway, I want to keep this one bleep free, so I'll curtail that. What else you could say? If you disagreed with me about Steam Whistle Pilsner and you're done sucking your egg, take the egg out of your mouth. Get ready to listen to me, because I'm not trying to apologize and I'm not trying to change my position. But I will say this. Odds are, if you disagreed with me on Steam Whistle Pilsner being the flagship beer of Ontario craft brewing, you would have said this is the flagship beer of craft brewing. And if you're not watching at home, if you're listening on the podcast, I am holding up a delicious, very cold, very attractive can of Great Lakes Brewing Canuck Pale Ale. Can I get an amen? I'm really hoping somebody just shouted amen. Anyway, that's what we're drinking tonight. The Great Lakes Brewing Canuck Pale Ale, a rock solid classic. Oh, there we go. Lovely stuff. Gonna pour it in a beautiful glass here. If you are not familiar with Great Lakes Canuck Pale Ale and you are listening to this podcast, I would genuinely like to know how that came to be the case. Because seriously, guys, oh man, this beer is bolts. I heard a rumor from another beer writer here in Toronto that, in fact, Great Lakes was trying to make it out almost as if Octopus Wants to Fight might be their flagship. But I think certainly for the past at least, I don't know, half dozen years, if I think Great Lakes, what immediately pops to mind is Canuck Pale Ale. Canuck is a North American style pale ale. Think in terms of things like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Very hop forward, but not a crazy aggressively bitter beer. Very aromatic. I'm dancing around the word drinkable because, of course, it's a liquid that's not poisonous. That means you can probably swallow it, which means you can drink it. But you get what I mean. It's a crusher. You can really lay into these beers, and good golly, I love doing it. And that's what we're going to do right now with this delicious, delightful Great Lakes Canuck. It is I would call that like a honey light orange, yellowy colored, quite hazy, not a chunky boy. I see no chunks, but quite hazy, quite a hazy boy. Often you can get a nice bit of white head. This one's dropped pretty quickly because I tend to try and pour gently over my crotch, which would be embarrassing because I am live on YouTube and Instagram right now. So I would not like to do that. But yeah, you can often get a nice big white foamy head on here. On the nose, oh, good golly. Oh, yeah. I mean, very citrusy. Yeah, peel and fruit, so kind of orangey, tangerine, maybe a bit of grapefruit. Again, that bitterness of the peel, but also the quick juicy sweetness almost of the fruitiness. I'm not sure if my glasses just touched my mic or my glass. Apologies if there was a rattling in your ear. I just really like getting my nose in here. You know, Canuck, I haven't really actually stuck my nose in a glass of Canuck in a while. It used to have quite a piney hop to it as well. I'm not getting as much pine on the nose. Let's have another sip here, or a sip. I haven't had a sip yet today. Oh, guys, I'll let you in on a secret before we talk more about the beer. I think I mentioned that I've been doing like 3 days a week dry, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Well, I did have some drinks on Tuesday because we were at Great Wolf Lodge until dinner time. And then we went to a bar in Niagara on the Lake for dinner. I'm not going to have a soda. So I actually really only was dry yesterday. But that was my first beer between Tuesday night and Now I will tell you on the palate. Oh, pardon me, people watching at home. Oh gosh, my mustache is out of control right now, which means I have to keep the beer out of it. On the palate, it's a bit more tannic, a little bit earthier. Citrusy qualities definitely still there, but some other characteristics of the hop are really roaring in now. And certainly I think pininess would be part of it. Yep. Yeah, it's almost a little earthy right off the get-go, and then it kind of transitions through to a bit more of a citrusy. And again, now we're talking more peel, less juice on the palate, with a lovely, dry, almost a little herbaceous, hoppy finish. Oh, I like this beer a lot, guys. I got to be honest with you. It's a shame that I haven't really given it much thought recently, but this is definitely a beer that I generally just keep in my fridge and I just crush them. I had some at Great Wolf Lodge because it's a beer that I just want to take with me when I go places. Great Lakes Canuck Pale Ale. Let's talk food first. What are you going to eat with this? Just about anything's going to taste pretty good with this delicious beer. Again, we were talking in the past last week about hoppiness and spicy food. And, that could be an interesting avenue to pursue. But I got another idea for you. Just give me another sip second, if you would be so kind. I would go with spiciness, yes. But more than that, I want layered characteristics. And I would like you to either procure or produce yourself some delicious, delightful jerk fish, not chicken, kids. I mean, if you want to do it with chicken, go ahead. But I want you to do it with fish. Get a nice, firm white fish, ideally an ocean-going white fish. I'm thinking not sea bass because I got a real bee in my bonnet about sea bass. You know what you could use? To be great? Pollock. Some Alaskan pollock would work really well. Better, but much harder to get in Toronto, assuming that's where you're listening, would be mahi-mahi. One of my things that I love about visiting Florida is it's so easy to get mahi-mahi. And mahi-mahi is such a wonderful, wonderful fish. But I digress. grab yourself some pollock. Haddock could be fine. Cod would probably work just fine and dandy. Whatever you're going to use. Then, if you're feeling real hipster cool, make yourself some jerk sauce. Not that hard to do if you have access to a decent spice cupboard, as I do. On the flip, you can buy yourself some jerk sauce. The PC Memories of, I think it's Montego Bay, is a jerk sauce, and it's pretty solid. Alternatively, most grocery stores now in the international aisle, you can get Grace brand products, which are typically Caribbean products, and they make a decent jerk sauce as well. Or you could actually just you could try going to a jerk place and just seeing if you can get some of their sauce. Wouldn't hurt to ask. Telling you that for free. Anyway, you're going to make your jerk chicken, or not chicken. That's what we're talking about, fish. And here's one of the differences. Typically with chicken, you do the jerk sauce, and then you're going to finish it over a hardwood charcoal grill, possibly even letting it smoke for a little while to get it some smoky characteristic. With the fish, you certainly can do that, but I tend, when I prepare it, to do it under the broiler. And it's just a bit easier to manage the fish that way. And I don't find you need as much smoke characteristic, but what you're going to get with this now. So white, firm, marine perch or something like that. So right away, we're working with the juxtaposition of the dry bitterness, working with the slightly fattier quality of the fish. But then we're going to lay in a bunch of spices. In jerk sauce, you get allspice, probably some Scotch bonnet peppers, which are spicy, but also have a very characteristic pepper taste that's very, very, very much Scotch bonnet. They're fruitier, I find. The fleshy taste is almost more reminiscent of like a red bell pepper than like a hot pepper. And I think that those are going to play well off of the more herbal or earthy, hoppy, bitter qualities. I think. I got to be honest with you, I haven't tried this in a long time, but it's making me want to make some jerk fish. So it doesn't look like my wife's watching on Instagram right now, but babe, maybe we should put that on the menu. The kids won't dig it, but my golly, I will. And you will too, my love. Anyway, that's where I would go with this. Again, thinking about trying to like Batman and Robin, as it were, of the beer and culinary world. That's the direction I would go with that. If you want a cheese, it goes really good with this. And speaking completely from experience, I just wanted to have a sip while I was thinking about it, is a cloth-bound, really dank cheddar. Like it'd be great if there was a little gray mottling on the cloth bound part of the cheddar. That'd be nice. You're probably going to have to go to a hipster cheese shop to get that. You don't see it at Loblaws too often, but any of your major hipster cheese places that you prefer. We've got the Art of Cheese here on the beach on Kingston Road, or Alex Farms on Queen. We have two good hipster cheese shops. Both of them can help connect you with a real dank farmhouse cheddar, cloth bound ideally, and that would just be delightful. Let's talk a bit about Canuck. Fitting, given that not really, but kind of, we're coming up to a Summer Olympics in Japan if COVID-19 doesn't cause its cancellation. Delicious. Not COVID-19, the beer. I don't think COVID-19 probably has a taste. If it does, well, no, you know what? Let's not even. The beer is delicious. COVID-19, nobody's having fun with that. But Canuck Pale Ale was originally first released as a kind of one-off or seasonal offering. I can't remember which year's Olympics, but it was for a Winter Olympics. And the branding had an attractive set of skis and a toque, because it was called Crazy Canuck, which was the name of our ski team back in the day. The Crazy Canucks, they called us. Of course, the LCBO does not approve of sports and beer unless you have a lot of money. If you have a lot of money, you can relate sports and beer as much as you want, but you have to give them the money and spend it in political ways. If you're just a normal small brewer, if you try and incorporate sports into the labeling of your beer, you will be told a hard and fast no from the LCBO. So they changed it to Canuck. They changed the branding a bit. And then over the years, it's morphed. And of course, with the redesigns that started 5 years ago now, Canuck was one of the first ones to get done with that very attractive I was going to say animated. That'd be something if it was an animated label. But the sketched label of Gordy Levesque, the picture of Canadian beer, wearing his plaid shirt and his toque, and holding an axe. I'm holding it up for the camera here. There's Gordy. What a handsome fella. Big beard, curly mustache. Actually, he looks like a guy I know. Anyway, that label, in fact, has actually gone through a couple of rebrands as well, although the image has stayed more or less the same. The coloration and stuff's changed a bit over the years. But the important thing is the beer, I'm sure, has changed slightly. In fact, one of the things about making a beer consistently over a long period of time is that you do have to change it, because unlike wine, where when the ingredients change, you just say, well, it was a better year or a worse year, brewers don't tend to have that luxury. So if the hop crop that year of, say, Cascade had a funny thing going on, then you have to figure out how to try and adapt the recipe to keep the beer continuing to taste the same way. Or, and in fact, this is where it gets even slightly more complicated, you have to make small changes to edit the beer in a way that it doesn't seem like you've changed the recipe. So you might decide that, say, for instance, with Canuck, I don't know off the top of my head what the hop makeup of the beer is, but let's say it was Cascade and Chinook and Citra, because those are C hops, and it was, given the age of the beer, C hops would have been pretty important. But let's say now they're thinking, you know what, it'd be nice if we could work in some strata. Doesn't that sound delightful? Well, they can't just dump a ton of strata in it, because the beer won't taste the same and people will be up in arms. Believe me, craft beer people pay attention, and they are not shy, even when they're wrong, to point out their thoughts. So you have to make very, 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 very small. I once had a conversation with the brewmaster from Hacker Shore in Germany, and he was describing this to me, that they were made aware at one point that one of the farm, and I don't know what, but they had about 10 years notice. And over the span of the 10 years, he just nudged the recipe little bit by little bit by little bit, so that by the end of that time period, they'd wholly moved away from the ingredient that they no longer had access to. And they did it in a way that nobody noticed, even though he claimed that if you'd taken a time machine back and grabbed one of the beers from 10 years before and compared it to the one in the present day, they would not have tasted the same. It would have been very, very similar, but there would have been a notable difference. But you just allow that difference to happen very, 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 very slowly over a very prolonged period of time. I kind of forget why I was talking about this. I think, as I said, Canuck's probably not the same as it was when it first came out. Between adapting the recipe for changing palates, say more tolerance for bitterness and more interest in hop aroma. Also the potential of wanting to use different or new or interesting or more local ingredients. But for whatever reason or reasons, it's not unbelievable to think that it probably has changed a bit in, say, 10 years or however long it's existed for. The point, though, is that it is still a rock solid example, of a North American style pale ale. And certainly within the province of Ontario, you would be hard pressed to find a better North American pale ale. And certainly at the price point, I feel like it's still like around $2.80 a can, which is 40 to 60 cents cheaper than most beers in its category. Pardon me. Enough of that. But that's the bit where we're at with Canuck. Get this, guys. When I said that one of the reasons why Steam Whistle Pilsner was such a flagship or flag bearer, it was its ubiquity. Canuck isn't quite as well penetrated into the market as Steam Whistle Pilsner. It is still probably got better distribution than like 97% of the craft beers in the province. You can see it at most LCBOs, almost all beer stores. Certainly every grocery store I've ever seen beer being sold at has Canuck. And while it might not have quite the same licensee, which is, say, at bars, same reach that Steam Whistle has, it is widely available. So if you're not drinking this beer, give your head a shake and go get yourself some cans of it, because it is a delightful beer. Now I'm going to have a sip. We're going to flip over to some any other business. And guys, I have some other business. The first thing I have to say is some unfortunate news, which is we were talking about the Beer Diversity Summit, or I think it was just called the Beer Summit. That has had to be canceled because there just wasn't enough people signing up for it. It was not inexpensive, certainly, but with an eye to industry and industry participants who probably ought to have been willing to front the time and resources, there just wasn't enough, and that's really unfortunate. I don't really know what to say. I mean, it sucks, and I would love to have seen it be, a real mecca of people learning from each other and just generally working harder to make the space a better place for everybody involved, and particularly people who are marginalized. But it's been postponed. The good news is Ren, who was one of the key organizers, is, I think it's fair to say, hard as nails. So she will bounce back and continue in her efforts to just widen the scope and the reach of our industry and try and help people be better, I guess is what it comes down to. So keep your eyes peeled. Follow her regardless of whether or not you could or would or wanted to participate in the Beer Summit. Look up Ren or Beer Diversity, I believe, is the easiest way to find her on the socials. So a bit unfortunate. And Ren, I love you. Hang in there, kid. So that's what we got for that. Aside from that, I know I had an email here, speaking of diversity, about sometimes when I'm at work, I accidentally delete things, and I might have accidentally deleted that. Oh, no. Oh, my mouse cursor was right on it. Hey, who's heard of the Pink Boots Society? Because I have. Pink Boots Society is a organization that's dedicated to promoting. Let me actually. Oh, I thought I had a perfect quote there in this email. Well, I'll read you their byline, or not the byline, but their self-description about the Pink Boots Society. PBS is an educational nonprofit with chapters around the world. We offer support to women in the beer industry in the form of scholarships, a variety of other educational opportunities, and a supportive community to grow within. Hopefully, if you have been involved in any way there, but you know what? I don't even want to do that because A, I would hate to miss somebody who I love, but B, there's a whole lot. Just within the brewing side of things, there are female brewers throughout the industry who are wonderful and hardworking and probably putting up with more crap than they need to, but sticking in there. And then when you move into the wider sales and marketing side of things, of course, it's actually kind of positive to see how well represented women are within Toronto. That said, it's certainly nowhere near parity, and so we need to continue that. But more what Pink Boots Society is about is working with the women already involved in the industry, obviously, and supporting them in a variety of ways, which is great. And they've done a collaborative brew to support women in the beer industry. And it is what do we got here? Their collaborative brew day falls on International Women's Day. And so what have we got here? I'm trying to see what the actual date is. I got the date of the release. But they have brewed it looks like, with Black Lab Brewing, which is fantastic. They will brew a still to be named dry hopped pilsner from Yakima Chief hops, or YCH as the cool kids call it. And it sounds delightful. It sounds wonderful. I would suggest keeping your eyes peeled for that beer. And when the day of the release comes, go to your local or wherever is nearby that you can grab some of that beer. Show some love and support for the Pink Boots Society, and very likely enjoy a pretty tasty sounding beer by the sound of it. So check that out. Any other events coming up? I don't know. I need a sip of beer. Well, I will mention one just off the top of my head. This Sunday, if you are listening to the podcast on very, very soon after its release, recalling that I'm recording this on February the 22nd, I believe we're looking at Sunday, March the 1st. come on down to Popper's Pub. It's not strictly speaking a beer event. It's actually a fly fishing event, but I'm pretty one-dimensional. And if I'm not talking about beer, I'm probably talking about rugby or fly fishing or guitars. So I guess that makes me four-dimensional, which means I think that I can travel through time. This analogy is falling apart, but the point is, come down to Popper's Pub. I think they said the time was 6:30. It's going to be a really interesting discussion, presentation on Atlantic salmon fishing in the Gaspé region, which I know sounds a little niche-y, but the reality is we actually have a pretty good Pacific salmon run right here in the city. I got a couple of monsters in the fall, boy. Anyway. So there's some cross application, but much more importantly, if you've been interested in fly fishing, but never really known how to even look into it, aside from that one time that you watched a river runs through it and, found Brad Pitt highly attractive while fishing. Hey, come on down to Popper's Pub this Sunday. The guys from Drift are going to be there. There's a speaker whose name is escaping me right now, but he will be discussing Atlantic salmon fishing on the Gaspé region. But much more importantly, an amazing way to kind of connect with the community, learn some more about fly fishing. And I think it's going to be a fantastic time. And Popper's is a fun pub. Pretty sure there's pretty much always some Black Oak Pale Ale on tap there, which is a wonderful example of a British style pale ale. Different than the North American Pale Ale we were drinking tonight. Incidentally, that or Nut Brown from them would be, I would say, their flagship. So anyway, Popper's Pub, you can look it up. Check out Drift Outfitters if you want more details. And we'll have to see, but there's a good chance I'm going to come to that, which is, a rare Sunday out for me, but we'll see what we can do. No Six Nations this weekend. And so we got until next week, but obviously you want to check that out, hit me up. I got a great place to watch it. And I think other than that, I think we're going to call it a day. I was going to tease out. I was supposed to have friend of the pod who was mentioned at the start of this app, Josh, co-host while we were at Great Wolf Lodge. But then obviously when it didn't happen, that got bumped. It actually works out well. Josh has actually been staying away from the beer recently, more into whiskeys and sort of that sort of thing. So I think in the month of March, I'm going to do a whiskey week and I'll drink a whiskey or two. And I'm going to see if I can get him to hop on the pod and we could discuss whiskey together. And then the question would just be, what sort of whiskey should we consume? A Scotch whiskey or a Japanese Scotch whiskey or perhaps an Irish whiskey or an American bourbon? Bourbon, I like that. Or a Canadian. There's some wonderful whiskeys coming out of a couple of the small independent distillers in the area. So get at me. Let me know if you've got one in mind that you think we should check out. Aside from that, next week, it is not Flagship February anymore, and I need suggestions. So come at me, bro. What should I drink? I'd be curious to hear your ideas and your thoughts. Holy moly, this episode's almost half an hour long, and I got an episode of Silicon Valley to watch, so I got to run. It's been great. Sorry again for the late release. I hope this is a little surprise in your Friday morning podcast feed. If you're like me and look at that feed every morning and hope there's going to be something juicy, I hope this was juicy. I don't know what that means, but for what it's worth, I hope it's so. Other than that, hey guys, it's only going to be a couple of days till we do this again. So Monday, sometime after 9, look for me online if you follow me on Instagram or YouTube. Otherwise, should be in the feed Tuesday morning for you. And until then, take it easy out there, guys. A lot of snow, some rough weather today too. Holy moly, it was a day, wasn't it? Shovel your walks, please, guys. As a mailman, I really appreciate it, and I guarantee you all your neighbors appreciate it too. Take care of each other, eh? Because guys, we're all in this together, okay? And I've been saying, you don't know what the walk people have been having. You do if you didn't shovel your walk. It was sucky and covered in snow and maybe ice. So anyway, end rant. Take care of each other out there, guys. Be safe. And I'll talk at you on Monday.